Hello. Welcome back to the 1 Year Sustainability Challenge. It's me, your host, creator, challenge creator, person who tells you about things, Lauren Jordan. That's me. I am a producer and really interested and passionate about sustainability, and specifically how small business and small independent creators can be more sustainable and how we can push for change at the community, country, and global levels. And I'm coming here today, coming at you, today to talk to you about the next month of the challenge, which we are well into by the time you're watching this, by the time I'm recording this actually. The theme for March is March for a Cause. So really this is the first month focusing on climate action, climate justice, but also just like things you can do around your community to make it better for those that live in it, including plants and animals. If you were to go to 1ysc.org, you would find links to the challenge information for the previous 2 months, January, and the reality of recycling, as well as Food Waste February. You could probably figure out what those are about based on the titles. At the wiki page, you will find information about those challenges and resources for engaging in the challenge contents yourself. For January, there was links to places to find recycling, as well as information about recycling material types, tips on how to recycle things that are a little harder to recycle, and if not recyclable, ways that you can use them in other ways. For February, we talked about gardening and composting, and also just cooking and purchasing foods in slightly different ways in order to reduce our food waste. Because this is the first month really focused on sustainability as a activist initiative, I think that as a whole the challenge is an activist initiative, but this is really the first month talking about, voting and things like that. And one of the very first things that you will see if you were to look at the contents for the March for a Cause page on the wiki is it prompts you to vote. Specifically, if you're not registered to vote, please register to vote. And if you need help learning more about what's on the ballot and how you specifically would like to vote and how you can educate yourselves on what is on the ballot in your local area and how you can vote to align with your goals and ethics and values, you can head to Ballotpedia, which is a really cool resource that basically breaks down what's on the ballot so that you can educate yourselves on those things. We are in an election year here in the United States. The year I'm recording this is 2024. I, as of this year, will be turning 34 years old. So I was born in 1990 and I turned 18 the year of the 2008 election, and I turned 26 the year of the 2016 election. And I voted in both of these, and I am happy with how I voted still as a almost 34-year-old. I feel like my age isn't like 100% relevant. It's relevant to the election part and the voting, and specifically the election years that I engaged in. 2008 being my first time voting, being 18 years old. I just want to make sure you're voting. So earlier this year, I believe it was back in January, I connected on Blue Sky, which is a social media platform. It's like an alternative to Twitter/X. I connected with Kate Shapira, who has a book coming out next month in April. So the book is called Lessons from the Climate Anxiety Counseling Booth. And I actually got an early copy, and I got to read this ahead for both this video, and also Kate Shapira and I are going to be doing a live stream on March 22nd. So let me circle back to what got me into being a climate activist. I think that activism can take all kinds of forms, and I think that you're probably an activist in a way that you don't realize yet. So a friend of mine is activist in a way. She makes a lot of art about things. She makes art about global events, and she donates a lot of the money that she makes through her art to initiatives. And to me, that is activism in just a different format from your traditional donating of time and money. You're just using your time and resources in a slightly different way, but you're reaching an audience that you wouldn't have otherwise reached, or maybe that other efforts to spread the word about that initiative may not have reached otherwise. I think that artists specifically have a lot of power in society. We're kind of the trendsetters of thought, and that sounds really pretentious. But what I mean by that is, if you put an idea in a book and people read the book, now they have that idea. And art is one of our main vehicles for communicating with each other. Art includes things like video games, music, television, but I would also, like, in my opinion, things like sport and tabletop gaming. That is art to me. And I think the more we put our own selves into our art and share it with others, like, that's the main way we communicate values to each other outside of, like, law. Basically, like, the way trends and society are formed is by people interacting with each other, and also art. I don't know if I articulated that very well, but basically all I'm saying is art is a trend-setting vehicle, and the trend can be good or bad. And we see trends in social media, like, y'all know what I'm talking about. Like, one person's got blueberry nails, the next person has blueberry nails, and blueberry nails specifically is not a very good example because that was not a successful trend, but you understand what I'm referring to. So I was a kid of the 90s. I grew up watching Captain Planet and recycling. I feel like the 90s had a really big push towards environmentalism. Specifically, I remember the issue with CFCs affecting the ozone layer. Like, I remember that being a huge thing when I was a kid, and I was obsessed with Captain Planet and making crafts out of recycled materials and things like that. And then I kind of fell off of sustainability for quite a while, really until adulthood. I was a very artsy kid, and so we made a lot of things, and I want to say my consumption really didn't get too bad until I was probably in my mid-20s. And I want to say it was a mix of the rise of social media and just the general rise of capitalism in every aspect of our lives, but also, like, some of the people that I was hanging around with and some of the groups that I was choosing to spend my time with, or specific people. And also just depending on the industry you're in or the kind of work environment that you're in, I think corporate America has really done a number on our heads. Like, and this isn't even really about my job specifically. This is more just a general trend about, like, what it feels like to be an adult in the workforce in America, and specifically that kind of pre-COVID girl bossing thing that I know there has been a lot of modern critique about, that I have really appreciated and learned so much from, because I will admit, like, that was a trend that I fell into. Like, I currently consider myself in, like, the trans, non-binary, gender fluid umbrella, but at that time in my life I was very much considering myself a girl boss. And I fell into a lot of the negative stereotypes of that, and specifically being called out on that behavior has made me a better person. And I think that as much as I don't think it is productive to be mean, I do think calling out trends, negative trends, trend cycles of human behavior and how we treat each other is a good thing, because that's how you learn. I don't necessarily think conflict is a bad thing. Conflict is actually very good. Conflict is how we grow. Failure is how we grow. It's what makes our brains wrinkle more. It's exposing you to an alternative reality than if you were right all the time. And isn't that just such a more interesting reality to be in? Like, I just love learning new things, and I love being wrong, because it means that, oh, here's a new version of the world that I didn't foresee. I consider myself I'm very good at noticing trends. Pattern recognition, that's the word. Pattern spotting. I believe that in general, we as a society are getting a lot better at pattern spotting and pattern recognition. So this is just in general a thing that across the board, I think that like trend spotting, trend analysis has become a larger industry. More people have this skill set. And I think a very interesting experience of being an artist in capitalism is seeing the things that you have once been very passionate about and had to really go out of your way to get access to and learn about, because the internet wasn't there or the resources didn't exist, so you had to like really be passionate about something to try it out, I guess I would say. Like I feel like it's a lot easier these days to just go buy a kit to try out a thing, which is good in a lot of ways. I think I would love for more people to experience art and to experience a variety of hobbies, because I feel like that just makes everyone a more well-rounded person. And I think a lot of us would be much happier if we got to try out more things before we were shoved into a box of like, you're gonna be a doctor, or you're gonna be a lawyer, or you're gonna be an artist. Because something that I have really found myself coming into in my 30s, having thought of myself as like an artist for most of my life, is that by kind of painting myself into that corner, pun not intended, but very funny, painting myself into that corner of of being an artist was really cutting myself off from all of these other opportunities and things that I would be really good at and interested in and have a lot more to contribute to the world than just through my art. And while I do believe that art is a lot of work, I don't think that you can argue there's a lot of privilege in getting to be an artist as a job. I think everyone is or can be an artist already. So by like trapping myself in this idea of being an artist, I was kind of trapping myself in this role where I felt like I could only consume and produce and benefit the world in certain ways. And like as an experiment, back in like I think it was 2021, I was like, I'm just going to stop thinking of myself as an artist or any other kind of laborer, and I'm just going to think about myself as a person who does things. So instead of thinking of myself as an artist, I'm like, I'm a person who does art, or I am a person who likes to garden, I am a person who takes photographs, or whatever the thing is that I was doing, rather than being like, oh yeah, I'm a photographer, I'm a e-commerce consultant, or whatever the thing is. I'm just a person who happens to do those things. So I was really trying to think of myself as human first, laborer second. And that was a really beneficial exercise for me. And it really made me realize that I had so much more that I could be offering the world than I was. And that really helped me step into sustainability advocacy in a much larger way, and realize that like, oh, I have all these creative skills, but I don't need to use them in this one narrow-minded capitalistic, like I must make books, I must make TV shows, which is fine if you do those things. I want to be very clear. But the thing that I want to know that I did to help the world isn't that. Like, that's not what I want to be remembered for, I guess. And I've just really, as an adult, come into like, I can't think of something that's more worth my time than this, than trying to save our planet. I think baby sustainability people, baby environmentalists, I feel like once you start to really realize like how bad some things are, you get really overwhelmed and you can kind of shut down. And I think shutting down and kind of getting depressed is super common, and it can make us feel stuck. And I was feeling very stuck for a long time, and I really feel like a lot of my peers are feeling very stuck when it comes to the environment, because it doesn't feel like we have any power to do anything, because none of us are business owners, or we're scraping by for, I'm going to say I'm in a very privileged position with my job, so I'm not talking about myself in this scenario. I'm talking about myself in an industry that is overall not doing well. A lot of my peers are really struggling, and me making art or like comics is contributing less to their well-being than me speaking up in other ways. So I've really just been trying to hone in on what skills do I have, what is areas where things need improvement, and can my skills improve those areas. So for me, I'm seeing a lot of like misinformation, greenwashing, propaganda, people knowing a thing's a problem, but not knowing how to find out more without like also getting overwhelmed, but also not even knowing if the thing they're reading is accurate or not. Because we're in an era of misinformation, and like I was like, oh, I read a lot. I remember a lot of the stuff I read. I'm really good about keeping track of like where things came from. I have a very database like brain. When I discovered databases, which I didn't really discover until I was like in my 30s, I was like, oh, where have these been all my life? My life would have been so much easier had I realized I loved databases, but I didn't do that because I was an art kid. Had I been more of a math or sciencey minded kid and not just wanting to draw all the time, I probably would have discovered that a lot earlier. And that's kind of just coming back to like, I really painted myself into like, I'm the creative person. I'm not the experimenty science person, even though I did like those things. But I really unnecessarily limited my potential, I guess I would say, in my teens and my 20s by really just focusing in on this one thing. So just basically coming back to looking at the skills that I have and all of these things that I can do, and realizing, oh wow, there's so many more things that I could be doing to contribute to climate action and advocacy and climate justice, environmental justice and things like that, than just like retweeting a thing or donating money. So specifically, the 1 year sustainability challenge came out of a different project, which is called Pantry Puzzle. So when COVID hit, so around the summer of 2020, and I was seeing a lot of people talking about how like, I don't know how to cook things, or I really miss eating this thing, or I'm really sick of eating just this thing. And I just came to really realize that there was a real, I don't want to say generational information gap. Basically, a lot of people don't know how to do like home skills, life skills. We got rid of home ec, I want to say like a decade before I got to high school, probably, because I went to high school in the early 2000s, late 2000s. I graduated high school 2008, and I didn't have home ec, but there was some home ec adjacent classes. Both parents work out of the house full time. Kids are in school, they have homework. So it's like, when are people supposed to cook? And when are you supposed to teach your kids how to cook on the weekends when you're also trying to do everything else, like hobbies and spend time together and clean your house and rest after your full work week? It's like, that's just so much. And trying to throw building more sustainable habits and basically a new lifestyle on top of all of that is incredibly overwhelming. And I think a lot of people try to, and this is like, I've done this, I think everybody does this. Folks tend to throw themselves whole hog into something because you get excited about it, right? You're excited about being, oh, I'm gonna be a sustainability person, I'm gonna be an environmentalist, and I'm gonna be an eco-minimalist. And you kind of engross yourself in it for like a month and you're all about it. And then you kind of burn yourself out because you go too hard. And this is like the story of my life in a lot of ways. And for me, it was really realizing that like, okay, I'm gonna make tiny changes. I'm going to just switch to sustainable brands for things. And then once I'm used to using sustainable brands for things, maybe I buy only local sustainable brands. Basically like breaking things down in tiny chunks. And even going back, who has the time to sit and analyze everything they want to teach themselves and say, I'm gonna do this in tiny chunks? Like you're basically deciding your own lesson plan at that point. And I started to realize, oh, this is the stuff I really like. Like, I'm enjoying this. I really like breaking things down into little chunks for other people to learn from. And basically Pantry Puzzle started from people learning to cook. Like I was like, let me devise some recipes where regardless of what you have, you'll get a food. So that basically turned into a big like math formula and a database of ingredients and recipes that I'm working through because I am basically trying to build an app. But as an offshoot of that, basically the older I get and the more our climate change becomes an issue, the more passionate I become about it, and the more focused in that direction my projects have become. So the 1 year sustainability challenge I've been working on for like a year and a half at least, before I even started recording videos. So a lot of this was like just a year of researching and pulling things into a database and being like, okay, how can I break these out into a challenge that can
introduce people to sustainability in small chunks, give them some resources without getting too overwhelming, try to incorporate both video and podcasts and graphics, but also books and like local community things that they can be engaging in, and how do they find those things. Like really wanted to take all of this information and try to break it down into an easy to digest format for folks to direct loved ones to when they start showing interest in sustainability, because I think that this, just as a social trend, this is just going to become the norm. In the same way that people don't smoke indoors anymore, it's just going to become normal to be more sustainable. And really, as I mentioned before about artists being trendsetters, big point of this channel and the 1 year sustainability challenge is to take my skills as an artist, but also as someone who really likes to gather information and organize it, and put it into this project to try to help save our planet. So this was a thing that I could think to do to help. And I don't think that everyone needs to have like some big project that is their thing, that's their special weapon. You don't need to have a special weapon. Like, if you just want to volunteer once a month. We're all doing this in the way that we can. Meet yourself where you're at, is what I'm saying. If you're like someone who really likes math, lean into that. If you're someone who really likes being outdoors, lean into that. There's a limitless amount of ways and avenues for us to be sustainable in our day-to-day lives. And I get excited thinking about all the possibilities and where we are going to be as a society in like 5 years, because I really think if we all can change our mindset, and be thinking about this as a problem that we can collectively solve if we work together and think and are okay with making ourselves just a little uncomfortable because we have to sort our garbage in a certain way, or maybe we pay slightly higher fee monthly to use a more energy efficient energy source. So like as an example there, my partner and I pay, I think it's like $4 a month for our energy to come from renewable resources. And like, that's just a small thing. When I lived in Chicago, I paid to have my compost picked up. Not everyone has to do these things. This was just, I knew this was within my means at the time, and it aligned with my ethics, and it was something that I budgeted for. And so again, maybe you need to budget your time, maybe you need to budget your money, maybe you need to budget your energy, but there's probably somewhere in your life an area that's your sustainability niche. Find the thing that you want to save, find the thing that you want to protect and know more about, and keep going for the rest of your life. Okay, so specifically in the book, one of the first questions that it asks is, do you worry about climate change? And I know not everyone will answer yes to that question, but I think at least most people reading this book or watching this video would probably answer yes. And then some of the questions further on in chapter 1 ask you, like, kind of dig deeper into that, like, what specifically are you afraid of? And asks you to envision what you would do specifically in a climate crisis. And as someone who lives in the United States, and specifically has lived in areas of the United States that haven't had a lot of climate issues, I've been incredibly lucky. So specifically while I was digging through these questions and really reflecting on my answers to them, realizing that a lot of what is driving me is guilt and this fear that I was the problem, or I am the problem, and that I could have done something and didn't. And that really drives a lot for me. And I'm not saying that's a good feeling, but I would say guilt and shame has been a big motivator for me. And so specifically to talk about my history, I still work in product development for licensed intellectual properties. And so a lot of the stuff I make is like t-shirts with a character on it, or plush toys that look like a character. And as I have gotten older and look back on what I have contributed to the industry. A lot of it was just following patterns that already existed. And really since about 2016, I have become increasingly frustrated in most industries, and my industry, and really coming around to I either need to change this industry and make it better, or I need to get out of it. And there's a larger conversation to be had about industry and whether industry is sustainable and whether like business can ever truly be sustainable. And at this point in my life, I don't know if I'm smart enough to be having that conversation. I don't know if I feel wise enough to contribute very well to that conversation, but I can contribute to the conversation of business could be doing better. There's a lot that we could be doing better. And if anything, I can be pushing for change at that level as a transition into a better future that I do think, or I do desperately hope, will exist someday. Another thing that the book prompts you on is, now that you've identified this area and this focus, how do you make more room for that? And this is difficult. I think this is just maybe a natural part of growing older, but I've had to, or have chosen to, cut out a lot of the old things that I used to do for fun, and I do less of them now. And by this I mean I play a lot less video games. I still watch a lot of TV though. But I play a lot fewer games, and I feel like I spend a lot less time engaging in fun, frivolous things, and I try to spend more time on things that feel productive. And I will say, like, as an adult, and especially someone who's trying to start their own business, like, finding that work-life balance can be really difficult. And I want to say a previous version of myself was really just trying to distract myself from a life that was not quite where I wanted it to be. And through working on myself and improving my life, like, I really, really like my life now. I'm really quite happy. I feel like I need to distract myself less with things like video games and TV, and I can be more present in my life, which lets me contribute more to my community and also my family, and lets me be a better activist and a better environmentalist. And I think that distraction can be a really healthy coping mechanism depending on how much you do it. But specifically, it's something that I've become very aware of, how much I am using it as a tool. I read this really great think piece called The State of Culture 2024 by Ted Goya. Ted G. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Ted. Released this about mid-February. The State of Culture 2024. And in this piece, Ted really breaks down how we've gone from art to addiction, and the thread there, and how corporations are really using art as a vehicle for addiction. I know that maybe sounds a little wild, but I highly recommend reading this piece. It's not very long, but it just made me think. It really made me think a lot about what I'm doing when I'm engaging in art or media. And as an artist, obviously, I'm very interested in this as well, because it's like, when I'm sitting down to watch a TV show, am I sitting down to engage with it as art and be stimulated and to have my mind change, which I think is like the purpose of art, is to connect with others, get that good stimuli. Art is stimulus. So this article really breaks down the roadmap of art to entertainment, to distraction, to addiction. And it has just really made me reflect on why I'm engaging in a piece of art or entertainment and what I'm really getting out of it, both good and bad. And it's made me be a lot more thoughtful about what I have on in the background when I'm doing things just like cleaning and tidying up. 2022, 2023, I got really into like beauty YouTube, and I found about a year in, I had to unfollow a bunch of the people that I was following because it was just, it was too much stimulus that was about product. And since I've really culled my list down to only a couple of people who only part of their content is talking about product, and a lot of the other content is talking about like their lives or how they feel about things. And instead of, as a salesperson, it feels like they are taking in things, reflecting on them for a long time, and then pushing them back out to me in well articulated and thoughtful and well-intentioned videos, rather than just, here's a product I got and I'm gonna put it on my face and that's what it looks like, which is also fine, but that's not what I want. And I think really analyzing the media and the art and the entertainment that I've been taking in has really allowed me to refocus in the other times where I really need to get stuff done, and I've just felt less distracted. The book also, it really prompts you to reflect on your skills, your values, your fears, things that are important to you, and really pushes you to reflect on those things in a very productive way. And I really came out of reading it feeling like I had a much clearer view of who I am on this earth and what I want to be doing on this earth. And I feel like this book came at a really perfect time because this is exactly what a lot of my peers and myself are struggling with right now. Is we know there's a problem. We know we need to fix it. We know we have a responsibility to fix it. And in some cases, we know the steps that we need to take to fix it. But one step is just so overwhelming, or we're just so burnt out from previous efforts that just even knowing how to take one step forward feels like too much. And I just really feel like this book helps you solidify which step that needs to be and how to take it. And the other thing that I was really realizing as I was reading the book is, oh, the Once a Year Sustainability Challenge is my vehicle for this. So as I was reading the book, I was like, oh, guilt, shame, feeling like I'm not doing enough, feeling like I'm not being vocal enough, feeling like I could be using my skills in other ways, feeling like I'm taking space or time away from people who need it more. Like all of this is kind of coalescing into, oh, I need to be more vocal, and also the things that I am being vocal about, I need to be very thoughtful about. I want to be saying the wrong thing, because then you go back to that shame and guilt part where it's like, oh, I spread the wrong thing, I'm contributing to the problem again. So for me, a big soothe for that anxiety is activism. Sometimes you have to be the thing that kicks yourself out of being stuck. And a big thing for me too is perfection. Like feeling like I can't do a thing unless I'm doing it perfectly. I was having a lot of anxiety about not being put together enough or articulate enough or professional enough or something to be an advocate for climate change in a positive way, and really just having to come to myself and be like, the earth doesn't care if I said it perfectly. I don't need to do it perfectly. I just need to do it. At the end of the day, it is more important for me to say the thing and get the message out and say, yes, we need to be making better choices as individuals, and also be advocating for change and voting for change and holding people accountable when they do things that are bad for the planet. Really realizing that I don't need to be perfect in that message. The message just needs to get out, because the more often I say it, the better I'll get at it too. So a big thing with this channel and the 1 Year Sustainability Challenge was also about challenging myself. It's like, hey, you need to do better. You need to be out in your community more. You need to be talking and advocating more. You need to be more vocal. I'm not doing enough. And so like a big part of the 1 Year Sustainability Challenge was like, I didn't feel like I was doing enough. And if I want to lead by example, I need to be doing more. And I'm really happy with where the challenge is, and I'm having a lot of fun, even if this channel never blows up and I never get like 1 million subscribers. I will know that I at least put the work in, and I will know that I'm at least influencing a couple people who watch my videos, and maybe they're going to take that and they're going to take that forward. Because really the only way that we're going to save this planet is if we're all doing a little bit. We don't all have to do all of it. We're not going to save the planet with all of us trying to do 100% and then burning out. But if we all do a little bit, I think that we can do really great things. And I think that that is really part of the key message of the book. And if you are excited to see me talk to Kate in an upcoming Q&A live stream, the live stream is going to be here. It's going to be taking place on March 22nd. I will post the video premiere up. I don't know exactly what time it's going to be at yet, but there will be a premiere, so you'll be able to see it and click on it before the live stream actually goes live, and so you'll be able to watch the video that way. If you would like to submit questions to me or Kate for the Q&A, you can either submit them via the comments on this video. You could email me. You could send them as a comment through the 1YSC wiki, or you could join the 1YSC Discord. There is a link in the description box to the Discord if you would like to join that. Again, if you want to learn more about the 1 Year Sustainability Challenge, go to 1ysc.org to check out the wiki, which is hosted on Notion. And each month of the challenge is linked there with resources for each challenge theme. You can go back and watch the previous videos from the challenge from January and February in the 1YSC playlist on YouTube. And again, if you liked this video, if you're into the sustainability challenge and want to learn more or join me on this sustainability journey, hit the like button, maybe consider a subscribe. I will see you on March 22nd to talk with Kate Shapira about her upcoming book, Lessons from the Climate Anxiety Counseling Booth.